warm welcome to Ukraine Today. I'm Vladimir Solokhub. Join me now to discuss the information war Ukraine is currently fighting is First Deputy Minister for Information Policy, Ms. Emine Dzheppar. Ms. Emine, welcome to Ukraine Today.
Thank you.
So, Ms. Emine, everybody is talking about the information war and how important it is right now. And some people say that it's even more important than the actual combat which is happening in eastern Ukraine. And your ministry is vested with the task of securing the information security of Ukraine and countering Russian propaganda. So how are things going on with your ministry right now?
It's not an issue of countering of the Russian propaganda. I want to understand one simple issue is that this is a battle of non-equal possibilities. So it's the same if you're boxing with a man who is much taller and much kind of with a different weight. So which means that Russia
like if you were boxing with Mayor Klitschko.
Yes, something like this. And we understand that we have different resources in terms of financing, in terms of principles, because Russia is a militaristic state. They have a strong and censorship within the country. So what do? They even try to regulate the internet field, which is not, which we not do. And this is something of a principle for our ministry, not to regulate neither the broadcasting nor the internet resources, because if we claim that we have a freedom of speech, a freedom of expression, so we cannot do this. That is why we are on purpose not going there.
So what are the priorities for your ministry? What are the main tasks you see in securing information?
There are several tasks, actually. One of these is to work out legislation about what is it media, what kind of media we have, what is it informational security or information security. So just to put definitions in the legislative field of Ukraine.
Why do you need that?
Just because in order to have a proper response for all those information, propaganda, war, and in order to form that definitions, because it's very important in terms of, again, relations with government and media and etc.
But aren't you supposed to be fighting in this information war instead of passing legislation which would be defining definitions?
It's not only about definitions. You just let me continue with all those what we're doing. Another issue is that we're trying to put, there are several priorities. One of those is reintegration, information reintegration of occupied territories, which is Donbass and Crimea. Another one is embedded journalism. It's a possibility for international journalists to broadcast and to cover the events on the occupied territory on the east of the country, because it's different with Crimea. So we also have some legislations that are on the process of working out, and we're also trying to work out a concept of information security. So this concept actually provides with definitions, because without these definitions you cannot even understand what media, for example, is. What is it, international information security? Without not understanding this and without these definitions, you cannot move on actually in this legislation issue.
But what about some projects which your ministry is working on to actually fight the Russian propaganda which is being staged against Ukraine? Because we just saw the example with the Dutch referendum, for example. The Russian propaganda was so strong that basically the Dutch citizens, most of whom did not have a clue what's going on, they went there and they voted against the ratification of the EU association agreement with Ukraine. So did ministry do something to counter that?
The issue is that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs was responsible for the referendum issue, and they were also having a huge information campaign towards consolidation of Dutch society opinion on Ukraine. But as far as I understand that issue is that even if we had millions of dollars put in that campaign, Dutch people would not vote for Ukrainian association with the European Union. That's another story. What I my understanding in this case is that this is the first case for Ukraine when we had this kind of large-scale campaign that consolidated government, and also this was actually a unique example, and it gave us an experience of doing that.
It looks like Russia is staging this information campaign using the Dutch topic ever since the MH17 was brought down, and moreover, following the issue of the official report about the cause of the crash, which concluded that the crash was caused by the impact of a surface-to-air missile. Ever since, and it's been almost 2 years now, Russia is trying to convince the European population, the Dutch people who suffered the most in this horrific tragedy, that it's not so clear, that it's not the Russian-backed militants who are responsible, but there are other theories. So is there something which the ministry is doing to counter that on the international arena?
We, as far the response about Russia-Ukraine information battle I gave at the very beginning of the interview. So this is something, this is a battle of non-equal possibilities. We don't have this kind of resource, and as I told you, that Russia really influences international information field, not only in Russia, but also abroad.
Well, obviously, you don't need much money to open a website and counter that.
And it's an issue of huge money, actually. And today, it's absolutely artificial. You can influence that. With our ministry, we didn't do it with the referendum in the Netherlands, but the Ministry of Foreign Affairs did it, and as I told you, it was a huge experience for the whole country within this information campaign. What we do, for example, with Crimea, is that we understand that today we somehow, so there are two priorities with Crimea. It's just the development of the Ukrainian broadcasting. So we're planning to build up a tower in Chongar, which is the Kherson region. It would be 150 meters tall, and we could put some transmitters to cover the territory of Crimea. Of course, we do understand that we cannot cover the whole Crimea because...
When do you plan to do that?
So we have an investor. We found an investor who is ready to build it up within half a year. And today it's actually on the process. So the Kherson Oblast and the administration of Kherson is looking for the land plot to put for this investor to build up this tower.
Once this tower is in place, Ms. Dzheppar, how many viewers or households do you plan to cover with this broadcast?
It depends on a transmitter that would be put on the tower, and it also depends on what kind of media would be applied for the contest, because it's an issue of, there is a National Council for TV Broadcasting that gives the frequency for the radio, let's say. So what we say is that with the television, it's not possible to cover the TV broadcasting like analog broadcasting because it was shut down in March 2014, and we're trying to restore the radio broadcasting. Today we have a good example of coordination with the Ukrainian radio, with the Radio Liberty and the Ministry of Foreign Information. We launched an everyday radio program, Crimean, that broadcasts on the middle waves daily, a couple of hours, so it covers about 70% of the Crimean territory. And we do have not viewers, but those who listen to that radio.
Yeah. Mr. Dzheppar, can we go back to this very interesting project of installing a tower to broadcast Ukrainian channels to the Crimea? Are you concerned that the Russians might do everything possible to block the signal?
Yes, of course we are concerned, but it doesn't mean that we have to be. We don't have to act in this case. The issue with
is the technology which you will be using?
Ideally, with Crimea, we have to put a 400-meter tower to cover the whole territory of Crimea. But it costs about $80 million, which is really not possible for us to build up that tower, and we do not have any kind of investor to build up this kind of tower, and we do not have other countries, let's say, with assistance to build up this tower again. So we are taking into consideration all those conditions that are here in Ukraine. So there is an investor, and we are trying to help him.
Okay, but the question again is, once this tower is in place, are you confident that the technology which you will be using will not be jammed? Because if it's jammed, all the money which was spent to build this tower will be wasted.
That's an issue of investor. It doesn't mean that this issue would stop him from that building, because...
Isn't it your issue? Shouldn't you be concerned that...
It was our initiative, so it was our offer. He stick to that, actually, but it doesn't mean that, because this project is actually a combination of interest of private sector and state interest, because it's, for this investor, it's not only an issue of broadcasting for Crimea, it's Kherson Oblast. So it means that the Ukrainian broadcasting will be forced there. So it will be more intensified in Kherson, because it is also an issue of Russian propaganda there, and we have some Russian channels actively broadcasting in Kherson. So for him, it's an issue of business again, and possibility of broadcasting for Kherson. For us, it's an issue of putting some strong transmitters and to cover, let's say, 100 kilometers for Crimea. We don't know what Russia's going to do, because it's unpredictable.
Well, I can tell you, they'll try to jam it. That's logical.
But it doesn't mean that in this case we just have to sit down and do nothing. So we found this kind of positive case, so let's just continue doing it.
Mr. Can we talk about, again, in the same context, about the Donbas region, the territories which are not under control of the Ukrainian government, where the Ukrainian broadcast is being cut off? Is something being done, not only about the Crimea, but also about these territories?
As far as I know, that approximately 45 transmitters were put on the perimeter of the occupied territory. I can't tell you for sure how successful it is, because in my understanding, the issue of information is that, again, a choice of you or me as a viewer. For example, if you love Russia, let's say, and you have satellite, and almost everyone has a satellite, and you have a chance to watch, even if you have an alternative or Ukrainian television, you have a chance to watch Russian one. So you just switch on your television and watch Russian channels. And we have this case in Kherson, let's say, because people, they do choose to watch Russian television. So we're trying to restore the Ukrainian broadcasting, and we have some, like, let's say, 45 transmitters. Due to assistance of, let's say, Poland, Baltic states, which are broadcasting on a digital television, and they do not need these kind of transmitters anymore, so they just provide with those transmitters the Ukrainian side, and we're putting there on Donbas region.
Well, apart from the project of installing the tower to transmit Ukraine broadcasts into Crimea, is there anything else your minister is doing to help the Crimeans to get information about what's going on from the Ukrainian side?
Yes, with Crimea, it's something that is really active. So we have understanding that we do not control the territory, and the Ukrainian television is not there anymore, and all of the towers are controlled by Russian Federation. So what we do is we have information campaigns. The first one is Crimea is Ukraine Information Campaign. So it's an annual campaign that provides, and the aim of that campaign is consolidate the social opinion of Ukrainians, because approximately 40% of Ukrainians, they do think that in Crimea all the inhabitants of the peninsula are separatists, let's say, and they say, oh, why do we need that territory? We don't need it anymore, and let's say it's okay for Ukraine to be without Crimea. So what we say in this campaign is that democratic Ukraine, European Ukraine, is not possible and cannot be as a state, an integral state without Crimea. We had a board campaign, we had television video clips, TV video clips, when, let's say, prominent Ukrainian newsmakers were giving messages, not only for Ukrainians, but also for those Ukrainians who left in Crimea, mostly Crimean Tatars, who do still wait for some actions from Ukraine to get this territory back.
Do you believe it's possible to return the Crimea?
Yes, I do.
Merely with the information campaign?
No, it's not an issue. It's not the competence of information to take this territory back.
But it was information. But it was information which made people
absolutely not.
go
The territory
to the
was occupied
referendum.
by the military service of another state, which means that you can do whatever you could do with information, but you cannot take the territory back with information. And I think it's evident, and I'm actually surprised to hear this kind of question from you, claiming that it's possible to get the territory with this information issue.
Well, the question was whether you believe it's possible to regain
I think
it.
that it's an issue of ideas, of minds, of shaping people's minds. And what we do with these campaigns, we're trying to shape people's minds. First of all, Ukrainian people's mind, like that we're trying to make them believe that it's not possible for Ukraine to be without Crimea.
Yeah, it looks like a lot of complex issues there, and a lot of work in the information area to do for the ministry. Ms. Dzheppar, many thanks for finding the time to come and talk to us. We were discussing the issue of information war, information campaign Ukraine is currently fighting with the first Deputy Minister for Information Policy, Ms. Emine Dzheppar. I'm Vladimir Sulhub. Thank you for watching Ukraine Today.